Peace, Pillar and Pride family, Tyree here. October 23rd, here to have a discussion, conversation. As usual, we try to bring in subject matter experts for those topics that we think will benefit the community, and also give you an opportunity to pose questions and get some answers from folks that actually have credentials and the subjects that are concerned to the community. Today's conversation is on community and the police, how to have the positive, productive, and safe engagements with law enforcement that we possibly can, and understanding the perspectives from both parties, that being the police officers or those in law enforcement, and those of us who are the citizens that come in contact with them. So please shoot your questions in through our DM, or you can also email Pillar and Pride through the course of the conversation, and we'll look to get those questions answered as rapidly as possible. If not in today's conversation, we'll certainly look to post those back when we post the video of this conversation back to our IGTV. So today we have a longtime friend, Courtney Anderson, who's also a skilled and credentialed law enforcement, retired Detroit police officer, and has also been exposed to various levels of the justice system, coming to us with a presentation that he's prepared to help, beyond this engagement with Pillar and Pride, just to help distribute information out to the community abroad. So we're thankful to have him here with us today as just one of his pit stops in getting the community informed about how to have the most productive, safe engagements with law enforcement. Hello. Peace, people. Yeah, please drop any comments or questions in the chat. I see you folks coming in, and also please share the fact that we're on right now with anyone that you think will benefit from this conversation. Either you're coming into today's live or tuning in to the IGTV later. So without further ado, I'm gonna ask my man Ando to come up and share some of this good info with you.
Appreciate it, sir. Appreciate it. Again, my name is Courtney Anderson. I want to thank, first of all, Pillar and Pride, Tyree Williams, and Randy Williams for even bringing me here to even have this conversation. This is a very important conversation that I think is needed in the community. It's a sensitive topic, and some people don't want to talk about it, but it's necessary. Just encounters with law enforcement is something that happens every day in our country, in our community. So it's some people that have questions that need answered. And so I've been in law enforcement for 21 years. I started my career here in Detroit. I did 14 years here in Detroit. Took an early retirement. After that, I went to the Department of Justice. So I have a total of 21 years in law enforcement. I've seen a lot. With my experience in law enforcement, and I have a passion for law enforcement. I have a passion for giving back to the community. I grew up here, born and raised in the city of Detroit, so I grew up here. I have a passion for the community of Detroit and serving the community, and that's why I joined. That's why I went into law enforcement. So hopefully, like I said, I just want to have a conversation, and I want to thank everybody online that's tuning in here. Like Tyree said, if you have questions, postal questions, I'll do my best to try to answer them to the best of my ability. But this actually is a conversation that we need to have more of, not just one. But this is also a conversation that can go on for hours and hours. It's just so many different topics that you can hit on. So what I did is I kind of narrowed it down to maybe about 4 different topics that I kind of want to cover and go over. And this is basically how can we change the outcome of some of the encounters, engagement with law enforcement that we've seen, the tragic incidents that have occurred in different areas of our country. What can we do differently to change those outcomes? Not only is looking at the citizens, you can ask the citizens and say, is there something law enforcement can do differently to change that outcome? And a lot of people say, absolutely they can. You can ask the police officers, on the other side, law enforcement officer, is there something that citizens can do that can change the outcome of these incidents that have occurred? And they would say, absolutely. So it's a combination of both. It's things that can be done differently on both sides, and we need to come together to be able to make a difference in our community. So in order to reach our goals, our goals here is one, how can we change the outcome regarding police encounters? Like I said earlier, is there something that the police can do differently to change the outcome? Quite sure there is in some instances. Is there anything differently the citizens can do to help change the outcome? Absolutely. In some incidents, they can. And so that's one of my goals there is to try to have a conversation and to get your opinions and to see, what can we do different. Two, also my goal is to educate you on the law and your rights. Some people, it may sound simple, but some people may not know their rights. Miranda rights are important. Do people know that they have the right, when they're in police custody, they have the right to remain silent? Anything they say can and will be held against them in the court of law. Do people know that they have a right to have an attorney present when they're being questioned by law enforcement? Also, to have an attorney present at all court appearances at no cost to them if they can't afford an attorney. I know it may sound simple, but some people just don't know that. And so it's my goal here to inform people of some of their rights. So that's just some of their constitutional rights I touched on. What does the law say that the police can do? Kind of go over some of that. What are your constitutional rights? I kind of hit on that. Answer some questions regarding police encounters. So questions that you may have. Say, hey, if I'm on a traffic stop and this happening, what can I do? Also, I want to touch on, how to, make a complaint if you feel like your rights have been violated. Some people just don't know how to make a complaint. Of course, there's probably different procedures for different agencies or departments that you have encountered with, but I kind of want to go over some of that. It's really not that difficult to make a complaint. And then what do you do if you feel like your rights have been violated? Who should you contact? Who should you talk to? So I'm going to go on that. So one of the topics is what to do and what not to do during a traffic stop. What do you do if you feel like your rights have been violated? I'm going to go over some myths and facts about the law. To be honest, a lot of people, they gain their knowledge, information about the law through TV, through movies, entertainment. There's probably a dozen law enforcement shows and movies that's out on TV right now. And so let me remind you, that is entertainment. Majority of that stuff is not real. I get questions all the time about stuff that happened on TV. People call me, hey, can the police really do that? And so I have to tell them, yes, they can't do that, but no, they can't do that. That's state. So we'll kind of go over that. We'll kind of break it down as far as this and actual facts about the law. Since the topic, deadly force, like I said, we've seen a lot of incidents through our different areas of our country and the communities as far as deadly force, especially deadly force when it comes to people of color. We'll kind of go in that topic a little bit, and not so much as actually pointing fingers, because I try not to do that because I wasn't there at the incident. So I just try to look at it and see if there's anything that we can learn from that incident, so that maybe we can prevent that incident from happening again in the future. So again, going back to my original goal is, what can we learn from that incident? Is there anything that we can do differently to change the outcome of that? In some incidents, you may not. You may say, hey, no, there's nothing else that the citizen could have done differently to change the outcome. And on the other hand, no, there's nothing that the officer could have done differently to change the outcome. That might be the case. But, there's no way that we can look at every single incident that occurred, that we see on the news. But I try to kind of update and go over some of the most recent incidents. And then also, the most important, criminal justice reform. And a lot of people say that, they won't reform. What does that really mean to you? There's more, when you talk about criminal justice reform, there's more than just the law enforcement side of things. You have the court system, you have the prison system. What does that mean when you say, I want to see criminal justice reform? So we'll go into that and we'll talk about that a little bit as well, if we have time at the end. So the first thing is traffic encounters, what to do and what not to do. This is, I've been pulled over before in the past, and I do the same thing. This is something that I also teach my kids to do. First thing you do, if you see the lights and sirens behind you, first thing you want to do is try to pull over to the right as soon as safely as possible. Once you do that, my dealership goes in the park, and I tell people they can do one of two things. One, they can put their both hands on the steering wheel, and or I'll take it a step further, and I'll actually roll down my driver's side window and put my hands out of the window. Therefore, that helps the officer see my hands, so I'm not reaching for anything, and this helps them, especially at nighttime. As a police officer, I don't know how many times I approach cars in the dark, can't see inside the vehicle, maybe tinted windows or whatever, and it's an uneasy feeling sometimes. And so why I do that is just to help the officer know that, hey, here's my hands here. I'm not reaching or trying to grab anything. I know as a police officer and as a citizen, sometimes you can do things that would call a response from a police officer that you probably wasn't expecting. For example, a lot of people, when they get pulled over, they automatically know, the police officer, they're going to ask me for my ID, my license, registration, insurance. Let me go ahead and grab that. So they're reaching in their pocket, they're reaching in the center console, they're reaching in the glove box. So they're reaching in different areas of the vehicle. Well, as an officer that's approaching the vehicle, we really don't know what it is that you're reaching for. So we may be a little tense as we come up, and we may have our hand on our firearm, or in some instances we may have our firearm actually out. But again, like I said, we don't know what it is that you're reaching for. That's why I suggest, you have your hands on the steering wheel, you have your hands outside the window, and just wait for the officer to get there. Officer, he should let you know what he's pulling you over for, and then he'll request the proper documentation that he wants you to get. And at that point in time, you just let him know, all right, and my ID is in my wallet, in my pocket, or my information is in my glove box. That way, everybody's on the same page. Nobody's officer's not thinking you're trying to reach for something, maybe harm you with, or you're trying to hide contraband. Because if you think about it, I've been on several traffic stops in my day, and those are the same movements that people do when they are trying to, conceal something, or they're trying to grab a firearm and maybe do some harm to somebody. We don't know. They're reaching in the glove box. They're reaching in the center console. They have some contraband they're trying to get rid of. They're reaching underneath the seat to try to hide it and to conceal it. So those are the same movements as somebody maybe going to the glove box or going to the center console and trying to get the ID. So so that's just my suggestion as far as traffic stops. Again, you may want to put your hands out the window, or you want to put your hands on the steering wheel until the officer approach you, and then you guys have a conversation about what it is that he needs from you. So I went over what to do, or went over what not to do, and that's again reaching for your ID and wallet first, prior to the officer actually making contact with you. This is an important thing here, as far as do not argue with the police officer or get into a conversation. Sometimes it may be hard, depends on who it is that you're dealing with. I say a lot of incidents that have occurred in the past, it may start off as a simple traffic stop, then somehow it leads to a verbal altercation, and somehow that leads to a physical altercation, and then that somehow leads to a deadly force incident. And again, the goal is to, what can we do to stop it? Let's not get to the verbal altercation. If it is a verbal altercation, let's not let it get to the physical altercation. Let's not let it get, to the deadly force incident. So again, let the officer, if he's asking for your ID or whatever, give it to him. If you have an issue with why he's pulling you over, you can ask him, the officer, why did you pull me over? Officer should tell you, I pulled you over for this red light, or I pulled you over because of whatever the reason is. He should inform you of that. You do have the right to know that. Again, arguing is not going to help the situation. And you don't know what type of officer you're dealing with. Just to be transparent, you do have some bad police officers out there. You know, what agency don't? You know, what organization don't? You know, as far as if you name an organization, I guarantee they got some bad apples in that organization. Just for example, I mean, you know, how many teachers, you know, have been arrested for misconduct? You know, how many judges may have been removed from the bench for misconduct? How many attorneys have been have their license suspended for misconduct? You know, political people, as far as governors, mayors, city councilmen. You know, so every organization, every department has had some bad apples. And so as far as a police officer, the police department or law enforcement is no different. You're going to have some bad apples. You just don't know what type of officer you're going to encounter. You know, you may have an officer that, you know, doesn't really make the best decisions, you know, when he's under stress or whatever. You may have may get an officer that has a bad temper. You know, so that's the person that you don't want to argue with, because that person, it may not take much for them to want to escalate it. So, you know, if you don't argue with them, then they have nobody to argue with. All right. The steps you should take when you feel like your rights have been violated. You know, first thing you want to do, you want to make a complaint. A lot of times, most departments, agencies, you can really go on their webpage. And, you know, you type in, you know, how do I file a complaint with this department, this agency. I know, just for example, in Detroit, it's pretty simple. You can actually call out any precinct, any unit. You can do it on the phone. You can go in person. Again, I think there's any precinct, any unit, and all this information is actually on the web, the internet. So it's pretty much that simple. As far as the complaint, I know people may say, oh, you know, what's the point of filing a complaint? They're not going to do anything. They're going to take care of their own. Well, especially in this day and time, things are changing. You see now there's stories, there's news